Okay, so boom, you are now listening to Brandy was here, the podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Nicole Walker. It feels so good to be back. If you have been a long time listener and supporter, thank you for your patience as I have been slowly getting my life together. If you are new here, you have come at a good time because this season is not just launching into something relatively new, but it's also going back and honoring what I created before this. This is completely unscripted, so I'm going to say what I feel and what I believe and what's on my mind. And it is my hope that what is said here is helpful to you. Okay. We are an audio forward podcast, meaning you might see me somewhere out in the social media verse, but this is for listening only. So play this while you're going on your hot girl walk, while you're in the car, if you're sitting in a boring office and you're trying to figure out how to fill the space and air, then this podcast is for you. I've been on live a lot, on Substack a lot, but really getting formalized and back into the podcast, it has been about 2 years, almost pushing 3, y'all. So I am a bit rusty, but also just full of stories and conversations that I want to share with you. Season 5 is all about mastering your personal brand during the pivot. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today, how to build your brand during the pivot. So first things first, I started Brandy Was Here the podcast back in 2020. And my goal was really to be able to tell the story of the unsung heroes in my life and to really have a conversation about things that I thought were important that people weren't really talking about. Like, how do we take the value and knowledge of our peers and our friends and our family and package that into something that can help us in our personal and professional careers? I got frustrated because it was hard to keep up those conversations. Not everybody wants to be online, and the people who want to be online aren't necessarily the best people to be having conversations with. You may notice that now podcasts have become super duper popular and feels like they got something to say and they should put it on air, right? A similar thing happened to me when I was an up and coming freelance journalist. I started writing for various, I don't want to say off-brand publications, but none that you probably know. Like, I wasn't writing for Vibe and stuff like that. It was just people that had blogs that were writing about hip hop and music, and I would write for them. And then I got the opportunity to get my own blog, One Stop Hip Hop Shop. And it was great because it was really focused on the music, foundational. I wanted to get to know the artist and the story behind the lyrics. I wanted to go bar for bar with people and really understand the story that they were telling. At the same time, around 2009 to let's say 2011, 2012, blog style writing was becoming really popular. So it became less about journalistic integrity and more about hot takes and gossip. And stories went from, such and such is coming out with an album and, this is what we want you to know about them and their craft to so and so is dating so and such was just seen in the club standing next to blah blah blah, or this person has beef with that person. And I didn't want to get involved in that. And because of that, my blog lost popularity. Managers started telling their artists not to associate with my blog because I was not getting the hot takes and the hot clicks. So think about, websites that became popular like TMZ and the Shade Room. That's where people were going for their music reviews and recaps. They weren't going to Five Mics on the Source started to mean less and less than it did when I was coming out. So I gracefully bowed out of that arena and said they can have it. I can enjoy music. I can share my opinion in other ways. I can have appreciation for this without being the person who is writing about and driving these things. I don't know that that was a mistake. It felt good in that moment. I look back and think like, oh, maybe I could have held on a little longer and been the only one. But it's a tough thing to fight against, right? I feel like a similar thing started happening in podcasting in that people have been doing podcasts since people have been doing podcasts. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a historian, but people have been doing podcasts since people have been doing podcasts. And then 2020 happens and everybody's at home. Now, all of a sudden, everybody's a content creator. Everybody's publishing long form pieces and this is how to and my style guide and all these things. And likewise, people are developing podcasts talking about certain things. Now, when something is trending, you shouldn't necessarily walk away from it, right? Because we've seen podcasts come and go between 2020 and now 2026. Some of your favorite podcasts aren't there anymore. There's a wonderful podcast I love. It was called Little Black Dress. Yeah, this wonderful podcast came and went. Several others podcasts have come and gone. That being said, I started thinking about what is my purpose in podcasts? Like, why am I doing this as opposed to writing? I'm a writer. I love to write. And so I started doing Substack and I started writing. I'm like, well, maybe I don't need to podcast. Maybe, I started getting more inquiries from people who were outside of my sphere of influence who wanted to be on my podcast. So I started interviewing business owners and different people. And I didn't like how that felt. I want to interview people that I want to interview, not people whose managers. And so I took the time off to be like, okay, is podcasting really what I want to do? Do I really serve a purpose here? Why am I here? And so in that time of being away or out, I took the time to really think about what I wanted to do. But then I'm looking at the stats. I'm a data girl. And I'm looking at the stats. And in the 2 years that I haven't been here, I probably got more listens on my podcast than I did when I was actively producing and putting out episodes. And so it made me think that the content that I was putting out, people actually are here for it. They want to hear it. They want to see it. They want to be a part of it. So why am I not doing it? That being said, I'm also a good podcaster. I ask really good questions. I have a lot of really good insight. Why am I depriving myself of sharing that and sharing the joy just because other people are podcasting badly or because a lot of people are doing it, right? So here I am to be me and to do what I believe I'm here to do, which brings me into my next topic. Season 1 of the podcast was my wildest dream. Not only did I get to interview all the people that I wanted to, except for one person, she knows who she is. Everyone was kind of in this. I was in a yes season. Everyone just kind of said yes to what I asked. After I had done all the interviews, then I had to start thinking about conceptualizing the show and putting everything together. And I needed a theme song, which I did not have. And so I thought it would be a cool kind of first episode. Think of it like a pilot where I just asked people who knew me to describe me to an audience who potentially did not know me, right? I was preparing in advance to have some people that was going to find me, right? And so I got all of these really beautiful statements from people that became episode 0 of You Don't Know My Name, which is still to this day my favorite episode of the podcast whatsoever. So season 1, episode 0 are people who knew me, and these are people that I grew up with who knew me as a child, people I went to college with, people that I worked with, people that I met on the bus in the street. Okay. I was gathering folks because that's how I meet folks. Right. And I just said, hey, like, send me something real short, 60 seconds. What do people need to know about me? Past clients. And it was just so beautiful. And when I'm having a bad day, I'll go back and listen to that. Right. Because now that it's recorded, you can't change your mind. You said it. Some other highlights from the season was I got to interview my best friend and talk about wellness and about therapy and what it looks like differently at different stages of your life and how it has impacted you. I met this really amazing journalist through through Instagram, and he ended up coming on the show to talk about battling a heroin addiction and going to jail and how jail exposed him to so many possibilities. Like there's a line that I never forget and get out of my head that he said, in jail you can be anything you want to be, which is crazy, right? I got to talk to another good friend that I have known for many years who I came to know as a graphic designer, and just knowing her over the years has really like expanded my mental palette because she is so knowledgeable about everything music, Black culture. I got to interview my son's basketball trainer because I thought that he had a real like just perspective on life and how to do things and how to get people from here to there. I interviewed my mom, y'all, in episode 1. I interviewed my mom. And I think what's great about that conversation is just seeing the parallels between she and I, but also really understanding her as a Gen Xer and how she thinks about things as a Black woman who grew up during that time, a Black woman who saw the transition from segregation to integration to even now, and how we connect. And live with each other. Season 1 was truly amazing. I cannot recommend that you go back and listen to season 1 enough. All of those mini highlights um, that we talked about and explored really, I think, set the tone for the type of podcast I knew I wanted to have. I experimented a little. I was trying to copy the style that I heard from San Quentin's Ear Hustling podcast, where everything is like a mass mash up. So every episode is two separate conversations that I had with people and my commentary after the fact about how these two conversations relate and overlap. Some people didn't like that. I really loved it. But in season 2, I tried to do something, I shouldn't say season 2. In later seasons, I tried to do something a little different. And for that reason, every season is kind of a little different. But season 1 is the penultimate, the absolute foundation of everything I thought and wanted Brandy Was Here, the podcast, to be. Go back and listen to those early episodes and catch up on the journey that got us from there to
Brand and the
here.
pivot.
Personal branding does not exist in isolation, right? I think personal branding is the name of the process of people sort of coming into their own. And it starts with self-awareness, right? A friend of mine was doing a series on anti-racism, and she invited me to come and talk about education. And I went and did that. And then people just started following me. So I would talk about education. I would talk about entrepreneurship. I would talk about a lot of different things. And that gave me the confidence to be able to say, like, I have things that I can talk about for more than 5 minutes. I know how to put together a curriculum. I know how to design a lesson. I know how to bring something from start to finish, and I can do it. What I didn't know at the time was what about my story people found valuable. I didn't know what I was comfortable sharing. You guys know I'm neurodivergent. I don't necessarily have a strong filter. So I needed to figure out not just what are the stories that I want to tell, but what are the stories that are going to connect, and not connect in a way like, oh, I want to go viral. But, as the church saying goes, if I could help somebody, one person, what would I help them with? What do I say that is going to connect to somebody? And so my lives really gave me that opportunity. I would go live every Sunday with Sunday stories, and I would share something about my life and the lessons I learned. If it was a past lesson, how it's connected to me now. If I was in the middle of that lesson, and yes, I shared things that I was in the process of, then I would talk through what my fears were, what I was thinking about doing, how I'm gathering information or getting advice and things like that. And that allowed me to connect to communities. What traditional marketing and branding has failed on is the vulnerability piece. And so, post pandemic, what we're seeing now are brands and people building brands trying to be more vulnerable, right? It's the corporate girlies on LinkedIn who are now doing this unmasked where they're showing up on LinkedIn and they took their eyelashes off or they're not wearing makeup that day. It's people who are creators who are showing you their morning routine. It's brands who are engaging in real and active conversations online, not just showing you, okay, we're selling chicken nuggets, but look, here's our CEO tasting our burger, or here's, you know, the behind the scenes sort of thing, right? That has become really popular. It can be overkill though, where you're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and looking at people sharing unnecessary parts of their life. And not oversharing does not necessarily mean that you're connecting with the audience, because that audience may not want to know you like that. You think you're being vulnerable, but we've seen a face without makeup before, right? The vulnerability piece is, are you speaking to your audience at eye level, so to speak? Are you meeting them where they are? Are you speaking to them where they are? And that's how you connect. I think for me, in doing those lives, I realized everybody was going through some form of a transition, whether it was getting used to staying at home more often. For the extroverted, outgoing people, it was because now you're working from home. Now people are collaborating in different ways, learning how to use new technology, whatever it is. People are going through a transition. And most people were afraid to say, I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm confused, this doesn't make sense to me. There's another group of people who are, I would consider, early adopters. You're going to learn something quick and then you turn that information over to other people. I'm one of those people. Most people who are taking advantage of the digital marketing land space, AI land space, are those type of people where you can quickly adjust, you can quickly take in new information, process it, and make sense of it. Then you can flip it back to other people in the form of digital products, workshops, education, whatever, right? This is the rise of the internet entrepreneur. Where I come in is that my expertise as related to my personal brand does not necessarily come from degrees or certifications, right? My lived experience, right, is my proof. And I'm not afraid to share my lived experiences. I have a clear line of delineation. This is what I'm about. If you're not about that, then you're over here, right? That leads to community connection. I am self-aware. I know who I am. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. I don't spend a lot of time talking about the things I don't like. I like to uplift people. I like to share what I like. I said a couple of weeks ago, I said, I think I figured out threads in that I'm averaging about 1 million views on my threads posts per week. And I also said that I post about 30 threads a day. And people are saying, oh my God, that's a lot. I post 5 and I thought I was doing something. Whatever works for you works for you. But you can't be afraid to put things out there and to put yourself out there, right? Now, you might be listening to this and saying, Brandy, I'm not trying to build a personal brand, but I hate to be the one to tell you, you have a personal brand. What people used to call your reputation, what people say about you when you're not in the room, that is your personal brand. Are you actively building it? Are you trying to monetize it online? Are you in the process of growing it? You may not be there, but you absolutely have a personal brand. What we're seeing now is in the marketplace, right? If you're out there looking for a job, your personal brand carries a lot of weight. People are asking for more letters of recommendation and references, not less. People are checking your social media when you fill out that job application. People are losing their jobs based on the type of people that they are, based on their personal brand and reputation. Lost her job at a very reputable bank. We've seen colleges and universities revoke admission offers when they go on social media and see things that teens are posting. So it's a very real thing. Don't tell me you don't have a personal brand. You may not want to actively be building it, but the brand is building itself based on the things that you post and the things that you do and how you show up in the world. It matters. You could very well end up in somebody else's video because you're yelling at somebody at, Chick-fil-A, or you're out in the street getting in somebody's face. Everything is being recorded. And people are posting, even if you aren't posting. If you're not online, they will find you. Trust. The other thing I want to talk about is when it comes to pivoting in life, this is usually where people go ghost, right? What we're used to seeing is seeing people one way, them approaching a place where it looks like they're going to crash and burn. They disappear and then they come back as a new person, right? We've seen this over and over again. What makes you and your brand stronger is sticking through it. Now, I don't mean coming online every day and crying and saying, this is what I'm doing. You know, this is where my life is falling apart. But you're showing people your process, actively showing people your process of how you're pivoting. I did this recently when I was going through my divorce. I showed up online most days to tell people, this is where I'm at. This is how I'm rebuilding my life. This is my new apartment with no furniture. This is the job that I'm getting now because I'm not mentally able to continue as an entrepreneur currently. Here's me driving Lyft. Here's me taking my son to school. Here's me, filing the restraining order papers. You don't have to go that deep if you don't want to, but keeping people connected in the process is important to the process, if that makes sense. The other thing I would say is thinking about how you want people to experience you. Your brand is not just about like who you are and what you want to do. You have to think about when I leave this room, when I end this live, when I log off of this Zoom call, when I walk away from this coffee chat, what do I want people to think about me and remember about me? If I were going to be the go-to person for something, what would people go to me for? Right? You have to be thinking about how you want to be experienced and how people are essentially experiencing you. The other thing is mastering your mindset. Any course that you take, they're going to talk about mindset. If you're getting your real estate license, if you're trying to be an esthetician and master your mindset, master your mindset, master your mindset. I used to hate hearing people say that because what does it even mean? Master your mindset. Master your mindset. Be emotionally intelligent. All these other catchphrases that you probably heard mean nothing until they mean something. And so if you think about how you work best, taking away all excuses, how you work best, like what do you need to be successful, whatever your job is, whether you're, a mechanic or you're a data analyst, what do you need to be successful? And for me, mastering mindset or getting to a level of mindset mastery means the systems and protocols you have in place to be able to get rid of or remove everything that prevents you from working at your best or being at your best. And I don't want to say working because interesting relationship with work and labor currently, but what prevents you from being at your best is mastering that mindset when you feel like or when you don't feel like it, right? How do you overcome that? That's mastering your mindset. Having things in place that allow you to get over that, right? Whether it's counting 3, 2, 1, like Mel Robbins said, is you just are committed to whatever's on your calendar you do. What are those things that keep you in the game and keep you mentally strong? Whether it's prayer, meditation, affirmations, reading, giving yourself a pep talk in the mirror, whatever it is, what's helping you to stay focused and to be able to push through and push past those things that would typically stop you from moving forward. Does that make sense? Of course it does, because I just said it, right? Hopefully I explained that well. When it comes to pivoting, you also want to make sure that you have a plan. And by a plan, I mean, and I'm not the best person to say this, but I used to be a person who always had a plan for everything. I live by my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it's not happening. If I didn't write out 5 pages of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it, it wasn't getting done. I have since learned to give myself more flexibility, but to still have a plan, an outline, a structure for what I'm trying to create, and to be flexible enough to know that I can make adjustments along the way. Some people get to a place of a pivot, and they end up spiraling because they don't have a plan. Don't let this be you. Okay? Your plan needs to be clear, easily understand, but it also needs to be something that you can act on immediately. If the plan requires that you have to, go to school for 6 months or you got to wait till you get $1 million, whatever it is, then that's not the plan for you. Make your plan quick, easy, simple so that you can move forward. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and share this with somebody before the day is over. If you have comments, questions, I'm always interested in hearing from listeners. So make sure that you leave a comment below and let me know what you think so we can keep the conversation going.